Welcome to Soltron. This is a video review for the DX Q Ranger set that I'm planning on selling. So I've modified these figures quite a bit to make them more like the mini Pla versions. So here's a size comparison so you can see it is the DX version. And when I modified these, I wanted to have the electronics still work. So I'll have to show that in another video because I don't have any AAA batteries. But mostly what I did was give these guys better articulation. So now the head can rotate and he can actually look around, which I think gives these figures a lot more personality and makes them just look a lot cooler. And then he has ball jointed shoulders. This shoulder is really loose because it has a crack in the ball joint, but he can still hold the weight of these tiny little arms, is not an issue. But this one has a better feel. And then you'll see in the combined form of Kyutamajin that this arm is a little bit too weak to hold up its weight. So it has ball joints there, so you can rotate those forward and backwards, and then has good amount of outward motion for more dynamic posing. And then the hips are also on ball joints, so you can get more of an A pose, which just makes this guy look so much cooler. And then it can kick forward like a little bit, hardly anything. And then same with the backward kick, it's barely even there. And then he does have ball joints in the knees, so you can get like a little bit of a knee articulation. And then they also have, for the Voyagers that I really liked, I put ball joints in them. So they have ball joints there and they can be used as arms like that as well. So the arms, for the ones that are dedicated arms, they do have sliders so that the ball joint can be exposed more. And that lets the elbow joint bend pretty much 90 degrees. So you can get a 90-degree bend right there. And then you get a bicep swivel as well with these ball joints. So it really helps with the articulation on these figures, just to make them look like more dynamic. And then you can see I added these little fists. So this fist is now holding the Swordfish sword. And then this fist is holding like this tongue whip, basically. So these fists are additional parts. And then they can still, these figures still transform as normal. You just take out the combiner port. And you can see the chameleon here, you're just going to take out the fist. And then there's this port right here, and you can use that to put the tongue in. So you can actually just have this tongue in his vehicle mode. And then you're just going to rotate down these skids. So just like the original figure. And then this is on a ball joint now, so it can really be articulated in any kind of way. And then there's a little hole on the inside here, and that's where this fist is going to plug in for storage. And there you go, and then this vehicle, this Voyager, looks pretty much the same as the stock Voyager. I forget what this one is called, but I drilled a hole in the mouth, so now it can rotate up. And then you can put this, you can slide this arrow effect into the mouth. And then the other arm can basically, actually I think if it's a bow, it should probably be facing this way. But the other arm can pose as though it's drawing the bow, which I think makes this auxiliary robot look a lot cooler, because now it has this extra arrow piece. Alright, and let's just have a look at him in a neutral pose. I think that looks pretty good, a lot more dynamic than the original figure. Transformation for the Swordfish is also a little bit different. You're going to pop out this fist, and then you're going to put on this new ball joint and plug that into where the fist was originally. Oh, put that upside down. And then he's going to look like that, and he's got this ball joint for extra articulation. But it looks pretty much like the default configuration, and then he can still rotate into a fist mode with a little bit of ankle swivel. Okay, let's move on to the Phoenix. This guy is now loaded up with ball joints. So you can see he's got this ball jointed, double ball joint neck. So he can pretty much look in every direction now. So this helps with his articulation a lot. And then he's got these ball joint elbows again. So you can get bicep swivel and some rotation as well. So that helps him, especially with his holding his swords. And then you have these ball joint hips which again, they don't kick forward very far. It's pretty limited, but it helps with the A stance just to get him in more dynamic looking poses. And then he's got ball joint knees as well. They're a little bit loose. And then on these Kyutama in the back, he's got ball joint heels, which helps with his stability a lot. So he can pull off a good A pose, no problem. I'm not supporting him at all. So he looks a lot more dynamic as well. And then he can still transform, and his electronics are still intact, so I didn't remove any of that. So he can transform normally. Okay, so here's the rocket and the satellite mode. The satellite looks pretty much identical. It does have some gaps to make way for his new elbows, but it's not looking, I would say, much worse than the original. There is a little seam line here, and that's because of these Kyutama just mash into each other, so they're kind of in the way. If you take one of them off, you can easily close this up, and everything's going to peg together pretty tightly, and it's going to be more snug. So there is a little bit of a gap right there, but overall, you get the standard looking rocket mode. And the rocket can pretty much pose on to its rocket platform. These thrusters kind of get in each other's way, so it's not quite flush. But if you buy this set, you can definitely mod a little ball joint in here, so you don't need these Kyutama to be plugged in. But that's just where I left off. And then I'll have to show the battery lights and sounds in another video, because I don't have the battery sizes for this today. And I did do a couple really cool things with the launch pad. So usually the launch pad is just one solid piece of plastic that looks like this. And then when you do the combined form of Kyutamajin, you just have these huge platforms behind them, but I put a ball joint in these. So now these can rotate and fold up, which cleans up the legs a lot. So that makes the leg modes look a lot better. And then I added one more little feature, is these toes open up, and now they have combined mode fists inside. This fist is missing a pinky, just FYI if you buy this set. But I think that's really cool that the combined fists actually store into these platforms to give them a little bit more of a function. Okay, and then we will do the Kyutamajin combination now. Another little extra step I added for Kyutamajin is I put this hole in the back of the Shishi Voyager's head, and now the Shishi Voyager can become a cod piece. Kind of fills out this area a little bit more. And then the neck joint is on this telescoping joint, so it can go higher and lower to pull off more dynamic posing, but really it's good just extending a little bit. Alright, and here he is, Kyutamajin, the fully combined form. This is what I think makes it all worth it. Alright, and here's a size comparison. Alright, and this guy's enormous, and I think he just looks a lot better. He's got better proportions, everything just seems more consistent, he just fits together better. So here's a 360 on how he's looking. And one thing I did was I made this little jetpack so the thrusters can be attached here. Since they're not his hands anymore, they can be back here, which makes this jetpack make a little bit more sense. And then he's got, you can see the improved feet. Normally, oh, he's heavy. So normally his feet look like this. So they have these huge platforms in the back. It's really unnecessary. His heels are very stable. He's not back heavy at all. This guy's not going to fall backwards, even though he's got a huge ton of weight on his back. So there's how he looks now. I'm going to have to go over this real fast. So he's still got those ball joint shoulders. This shoulder's nice and good. This shoulder's a little bit weak because it has that crack in it. So he's unfortunately not going to be able to support that weight, which is a real bummer. I'm disappointed that happened. It's just a very hard joint to replace. And then he's got those same sliding elbow joints that I made on the base figure, so he can still get pretty much 90 degrees at the knees, or at the elbow, and he's got good elbow articulation and forearm rotation. And then he's got these hands with articulated fingers now, instead of just having those thrusters. And these are just basically held in with friction. They're a little bit fiddly because they use these screws to friction into the bottom of the Kyutama orbs. And then the crotch, you can see, makes him look a little bit more solid, I think. And then this is like doing something other than just being attached to his back. And then he's still got those knee joints here for articulation and those same hip joints as the base figure. So he's got some articulation. He can get more of an A stance if that's something you want. So he can look a lot more dynamic. And then very importantly, he's got that base neck ball joint, so he can actually look around as you pose this figure. So I think that's a really important piece of articulation. And just look at this guy. I'm kind of falling in love with him all over again. But let me know what you think. One last thing, you can put the thrusters, if you prefer those instead of the fists, those can just be pegged into the Kyutama, and he can just have those double thruster hands. But I really love this figure. I hope it goes to a good home and that the person who buys it enjoys it as much as I do. Until next time.